So as some of you might know from my feed posts, I've been studying wine for about 9 months now. It's kind of growing as a hobby, and even to the point where I'm taking formal classes and have to take exams and studying quite frequently in my spare time. And I thought there have been some interesting and cool things that I've learned, so why not try making some videos about it. You could also sense a little bit of the boredom with coronavirus. Also for my work, I make a lot of these videos from home. So I thought not only do it for work-related content, but also something a little bit more fun. Why did I start studying wine? Kind of two things. One is the pure science behind it. It's a mixture of botany, biology, chemistry, food, culture, learning about the weather, geography, topography, everything all together is what you really need to understand to fully appreciate wine. And it's also about coming to an appreciation of a restaurant with 2,000 different bottles of wine in their cellar. Does this really make sense? Is this a necessary thing? Is there that much difference between these wines that a restaurant should be regarded more highly than another simply because of the volume of wine that they have? Or is it also the quality of wine that they have? So these were all interesting topics for me that I wanted to try to get to the bottom of. And that takes a long, long time of a lot of studying to even scratch the surface of this. So I thought I'd maybe try and pull some topics that were interesting for me, especially at the beginning, and do a video presentation like this. What I'm going to talk about now is the ritual of presenting and tasting wine when you order it at a restaurant. So the server or sommelier will come to your table, take your order of wine, and especially for a wine by the bottle I will discuss in particular, they will then come back and they walk through this multi-step process, and you may or may not fully understand exactly what they're trying to do. So now you have to separate that into two things. If you get wine by the glass in a restaurant, it's a completely different thing. So when you order wine by the glass, in some cases they will pour you a tasting of that wine. The question they are asking you then is, do you like the taste of this wine? Does the flavor suit you? In a question of kind of like, do you like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? The server may have made a recommendation. They want to know, do you agree and like their recommendation? And if they're pouring you a taste by the glass, there's nothing wrong with just telling them that you don't like this wine and explain to them why and ask them to bring you something else. And in a good restaurant, they will have no problem with pouring you a taste of a few things of what they have open by the bottle. They kind of don't care. The wine is already open. They will serve it by the glass. If they have to throw away a portion of the bottle, these are cheaper wines, and they have already factored into the equation that the bottle might spoil before they consume the whole thing. So park that for now. Wine by the glass. If you don't like the taste, tell them to take it back, explain why, such that you could get a wine that more suits you. Now, different story is when you order a bottle of wine. What they will usually do is they will first come and they will present the wine. So they may plunk it down on the table, they might hold it out like this on their arm, and it might seem a little bit strange. Why are they showing me the bottle of wine? I told them what I want, please just go get the wine. What I think happens more so than not when it goes wrong is it's actually the fault of the person who ordered the wine. And the server is checking to make sure that this really is the bottle of wine that you want. So that may sound strange, but if you look into the way wines are described in the labeling, it could get a little complicated, and not everyone of the customers orders wine the same way. They may not always state the vintage and the producer and the region and the grape and the blend. Sometimes wines are described in a very long way, and you really don't even know what is the key part of what you're asking that server for. What also could happen is you might not read the whole description, and you may see, for example, if I were looking at a menu and I caught out of my corner of my eye a Rioja from 2013, especially a Reserva. The wine is old. When I think of a Reserva Rioja, I would immediately think this is a red Tempranillo grape-based wine. Turns out last week I tasted a 2013 Grand Reserva, which is a white wine. So You could make a completely wrong mistake and order a white wine when you think you're in fact ordering a red wine. Some of the more nuanced cases, places like Burgundy and Bordeaux, if you order by the regions and sub-regions, you may also sometimes not get exactly the wine that you asked for if they have quite some wines from that sub-region. So, step one, make sure that the bottle of wine that they're holding in their hand is the actual wine that you want. What they will then do is they will uncork the wine. Very often, they will then present you the cork. They sometimes will put it down on a plate, or they may just plunk it down on the table. The server themselves may do something to sample the quality of the cork. They might smell the cork, which is a very polarizing thing among people who talk about wine. As they hand you the cork, the reason that they do it is a ritual that goes a long way back. And it almost doesn't make sense now, but they continue the ritual. Back in the 1850s, when Bordeaux wines were classified in a ranking system that dramatically influenced the prices of the top tier of the Bordeaux wines. And that created a market by which people would drink those wines, or they would find the empty bottle of wine, and they would refill the Bordeaux first growth bottle with another cheap wine, and they would recork the wine with whatever cork that they could find or have on hand. I have no idea how pervasive this was, but it was pervasive enough to create a ritual by which the vineyard will put some stampings on the cork. And if you look at this one, they stamp the vintage on the end, but also you have the brand name and the type of wine, such that when they present you the cork, you can match it to the bottle of wine and make sure that they didn't use an old bottle and refill it with grape juice and serve it to you. I have never ever heard of a place that would continue to do this type of thing. So cork on the table, you don't need to dramatically inspect it. If it's an older wine, you could check to see, is the coloring only at the end of the cork, or does, for example, with red wine, it start to go up the side of the cork? That could tell something to you about how well sealed the bottle was. It's not a real alarming thing. It's typical for an older wine to see some of the wine have seeped up along the side of the cork. One other thing when presenting the bottle, speaking of an old wine, you will often check how much wine is there in the bottle. And that could tell you some things about how this wine will taste, how it was stored, and how it kept over the years. Over the years, wine will evaporate. And if you look at older bottles of wine for auction online, they will often tell you the point, how close to the shoulder the current fill level is of that wine. So that gives you a little bit of information. So they will put the cork somewhere. You could quickly check the cork to play along with the game. And then what they will do is pour you a sample of the wine. Now, there's a way to taste wine to only get the taste to qualify the bottle, and then there's a little bit more the standard way to taste a wine. I will share with you a bit of the standard way to taste a wine, because if you do it that way, it will trigger to the person serving the wine, if they really know a bit of wine, that you also know a bit of wine. And it could help a little bit with the idea of if you have to send this wine back. So at least they will recognize that you know a little bit of what you're talking about. So first thing to do not swirl the wine. Dunk your nose into the glass and take a good sniff of the wine before swirling it. After you've already taken a sniff of the wine, you can then swirl the wine and again take a sniff of the wine. The reason to do it that way is to get a sense of the profile on the nose before a lot of oxygen hits the wine, and then again after a lot of oxygen hits the wine. It'll give you an understanding of how this wine is going to change as it's gradually being oxidized in the glass or in a decanter or just sitting in the bottle. Then give a good swirl to the wine. After a bit of practice, you can easily swirl it in the air. Some people struggle at the beginning. If so, just place the glass on the table, and with the bottom of the glass flat on the table, swirl the wine. Take another good sip of the wine and then have a sip. When you sip wine, it may sound a little bit gross at first, but you want to kind of slurp and suck some air through with the wine. I'll show you. Again, it may seem gross at a table of people, but if you do it a bit, the server will know that you understand how to really get the aromas out of the wine. So you take a taste of the wine. Now, in the case of serving wine by the bottle, the server is not asking you whether or not you like this flavor or this style of wine. It's not the chocolate versus strawberry question. They're asking you, is the wine flawed or is the wine not flawed? And the typical flaws that you would find in a tasting are, first thing that you're looking for, is the wine corked? We use the term corked. It means, is there a certain chemical called TCA that came into the bottle during the winemaking process? And they estimate different numbers, anywhere from 2% to 10% of the wines in the world served in restaurants could be corked. And if the wine is corked, it will typically have a taste of wet cardboard or a musty, moldy, damp floor in the basement of your house. This will be the flavor that will quickly be on your tongue. And if you get a cork wine, you don't want to drink that wine. They should take the wine back. The other flaw you might be looking for is whether or not the wine is cooked. Cooked wine is kind of like the way it sounds. It may have not been stored properly. The temperature could have been too hot for too long a time. It could have been variances in the temperature. And the wine will start to taste like a cooked fruit or stewed fruit, and you're looking for very much a fresh fruit type of flavor coming out of the bottle. So this is really what's behind the ritual of wine tasting. And the question that server is asking you is this wine good or not? So then the key thing is what to do if you think that the wine is either corked or cooked. Simple. Just tell the server first that you think this wine is corked or cooked, that this wine does not taste the way that you would expect this wine to taste. What I would then usually do is ask them to take a taste of the wine. They often will have their own glass with them, or they will grab their own glass. They shouldn't drink out of your glass, but by the way, not even having anything to do with coronavirus. And they will have their own server's glass. They will take a taste of the wine. If you are right, and this wine is cooked or corked, and if they are half skilled at what they're doing, they should also very quickly come to the conclusion. What they should do is propose to bring you another bottle of the same wine. It should not necessarily be, especially for a corked wine, it will not be that the whole batch is corked. For a cooked wine, it could be that the whole batch that they have is cooked. So they will usually pour another tasting of the same wine. If it's again flawed, you might start asking, is it really flawed or not? Maybe switch to another wine. In some cases, they might react like you are wrong. And in that case, you need to make a bit of a judgment. Am I ever going to come back to this restaurant? Am I 100% sure that I'm right? Am I familiar enough with this wine to know that it is not a cooked wine? And you need to kind of take it into your own hands. I would be polite about it. I would ask them to taste it. I would explain to them that this wine does not taste the way you would expect it to taste. And you could explain why, that you expect fresh fruit, that this tastes like something that has been exposed to oxygen for some period of time, and try to come to an agreement by which they take the wine back. I've never gotten into trouble. Even most of the time, you can tell just by looking at the server, either they will make a face as they open the wine. If they're really good, when they uncork it, they should have their nose close to the bottle, because they should be completely embarrassed if they put a corked or cooked wine onto the table. And in most of the cases, either they didn't even put the bottle on the table, or I could tell by the look on their face that they knew there was something not so right with the wine. So hopefully now you understand a bit about what this is. You know why they're handing this cork and kind of the stupid old reason behind it, but that is that, and how to have a proper sniff, swirl, and taste of your wine. Hope this helps, and if there's some other strange wine topic which you would like demystified, if I can help, let me know.